Hey, well, I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a true story, and it's one of my favorite stories. Story about something that happened in my life a long time ago. Uh, 18, 19 years ago, when I was a little younger and bounced a little better, I bought a wild horse. Actually, adopted a wild horse from the Bureau of Land Management. You may have heard of that sort of thing. The deal is that the horse herds on public lands out west are way too big for the grazing that's there. They overpopulate, and so every so often, round up a bunch of those wild Mustangs. Some of them still descended from the Spanish Mustangs that got released on the prairie 400 years ago. And they bring these horses, usually back east, and they can be adopted by anybody who feels like they want to take that on. And at that time, I was due for an adventure, and I wanted to give it a shot. Could I really break one of those Mustangs? What would it be like? Well, I was to find out. I went to the sale barn where the horses were. Must have been 200 of them. But as I walked the boardwalk above, looking down, there was one that caught my eye. It was a red roan stallion with a whole lot of scars from fighting. This is a horse that had been kicked, bit, and probably done plenty of kicking and biting himself. He looked like an old warrior, and I named him Geronimo. Geronimo, another of my favorite characters, the great Apache war chief who was the last hostile Indian to surrender to the U.S. government. Geronimo, I picked him out. I got to take him home. But wow, what was I taking home? I'd been told ahead of time, the instructions were that before you could qualify, you had to make sure that you had a big, tall, thick, stout corral. It had to be something like 20 yards by 20 yards. The top had to be 6 foot high at least. And so I began building that corral, and I made it strong. And I built this chute, sort of like you would run cows through to get them on a trailer, only I made it extra thick, stout. Not 2 by 4s, but more like 3 by 10s or something like that. And I knew that'd be the only way I could catch him. Sure enough, that was the case. This horse is not like the horse in your pasture who was born on your place and has always seen people, maybe even been around some people, but just hasn't been worked with. That's not what we're dealing with. Only thing I can think of to compare it to is, can you imagine capturing a wild buck deer and trying to tame him? A deer or a horse, they're flight animals. That's their natural reaction. They just want to get away from anyone they perceive as a threat. And somebody told me, by the way, this is interesting, that because our eyes are in the front of our head and theirs are on the side, they perceive us to be a panther, a mountain lion, because that is the animal that has stalked them for so long. Our eyes are in the front of our heads, and so they're terrified. I remember the very first time I approached the trailer, a borrowed trailer that he was in. We stopped on the way home, and by the time I got within 6 or 8 feet from here to Tommy of that trailer, it sounded like Tyrannosaurus Rex was inside that trailer. Bang, boom, bow. Just crazy, crazy, wild stuff. Got him home, though, with a dented up trailer. Turned him into that corral. And so began a process that was going to change Geronimo's life for the better. But Lord knows it sure didn't seem that way to him. He didn't think it was a good thing at all. He hated me and he feared me. He wanted nothing to do with me. I could not get anywhere near him until I had worked with him for several weeks, as you see. And you can also see in that picture the fear, the hesitation. That was after a lot of work. It took me weeks and weeks of running him into that chute where he couldn't get away. It was a tight spot, nowhere to go. And slowly I got where I could set my hand on his back without him just trying to rear up and come out of that thing. And after a while, I could put my hand on his back, then the back of his neck, finally the top of his head, and in the end, his snout, even his feet. And then came a halter, and I began to be able to lead him around in that corral. But day after day, he spent there. No way out, trapped. Every day I'd run him into that chute and put him through things he didn't understand. Why? Because the only way for me to really get anywhere with him, to get his attention, to convert him, was to put him in a tight spot, which is just where God will often put us when he really wants to work on us. He'll put us in a place where we feel completely stuck. We hate it here. We'd give anything to be back somewhere else, probably where we came from last. But we're stuck in a tight spot. But it's there, all alone, that God often works on us. And that's where I worked on Geronimo. And slowly came a saddle. And then came tires tied to the horn, one on each side, hung on the saddle, so he could get his bucking out that way. And after days of bucking tires and getting tired of that, then I'll always remember the day when I put the saddle on him with him tied to a post and eased up into that stirrup and swung the leg over for the first time. You see, I swore when I put him in that corral that when he came out of that corral, the first time he comes out of that corral, I'm going to be riding him. Because that's the only way I can ever set him free. Because if you take a wild Mustang horse and you put him in a regular barbed wire fence, they don't know what that is. They'll run right through it and hurt themselves something awful. And so I was trying to give him his freedom, don't you see? But do you also see how hard that must have been for him to understand? Trying to give him his freedom, but in order for him to get the freedom, he was first going to have to surrender. I wanted more than anybody in the world to set him free. But I knew what a terrible mess he'd make of his life if I set him free before he surrendered. And in time, Geronimo finally surrendered. He and I developed a bond. When a human being and a horse work that closely and spend that much time together for so long, a bond develops. And that bond developed between Geronimo and me. And he was a horse that I cared about more than any other animal I'd ever owned. It wasn't even like I owned him. It's like we'd become partners, almost as if we were one. When I would ride him, it felt like we were moving as one. And the day came when I could not only ride him, but I got to where I could trust him so much that I was actually able to put my brand new baby boy on his back. My little buddy, Jake Sawyer, on the back of that Mustang. That tells you how far Geronimo had come. What an amazing conversion had happened in his life. And he was a part of our life for a good time. And eventually, a set of circumstances emerged that I don't have time to go into. But the gist of it was I was going to have to find a new home for Geronimo. And it wasn't about selling him. It wasn't about getting a good price. That was secondary. That was third or fourth down the list. The goal was to find him a good home. I wanted Geronimo to be with somebody who would love him and appreciate him as much as I did. And that's what I prayed for. That was what I longed for when I put the ad in the paper. And I remember praying, God, the Bible says you care even about the sparrows. Geronimo's way bigger than a sparrow. Would you watch out for him? Would you, Lord? Well, back to Geronimo and his conversion. I begin to see that there are some striking parallels between what happens in a horse when he is broken and trained, and what happens in a human being when we surrender to God. We surrender to God, we receive Christ, we surrender our will, and a conversion happens. Conversion. Well, that's really what happened with Geronimo. It was a total, complete conversion. I'm talking one extreme to a beautiful, positive extreme. That was Geronimo. But, thank God, more importantly, that can happen with human beings in relationship to their God. No matter what extremes you've gone to in your life, no matter how wild you have run, how many scars you got from the years of fighting against God and other people and life itself, and all the fears and all the hate and all the resentment that is built up in you through all those years of resisting, defending, holding on to control for dear life. Oh, when we're living like that, doing everything we can to save our freedom, we destroy ourselves. And Mary Magdalene was like that. She needed a complete transformation, and she got it. He took a life that was such a horrible mess. Wild as Geronimo, and turned her into a woman with whom there was a close bond, trust. She trusted him. That's why she followed him. And think of the things she got to see as a follower of Jesus, walking with him, listening to the things he said, seeing the things that he did. That means she was probably there at the feeding of the 5,000. She heard the words, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was bound came forth, walking. Let the little children come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of God. Consider the lilies of the field. God has numbered the hairs of your head. God sees the sparrow when it falls, and you're more valuable than many sparrows. Such beautiful truths she heard. What wonderful things she got to experience for a while. But then everything went downhill. And everything got darker because Jesus, the one she was so excited about following, began talking about going to his death. I must go to Jerusalem, and I've got to prepare you, because when I get there, they're going to kill me. And you're going to be scattered. But, trust me, I will never leave you or forsake you. I'll prepare a place for you if I go away. And if I go away, I'll come back and I'll receive you to myself, that where I am, there will you be also. that sounded hopeful. The promises God gives us seem hopeful until we actually begin walking through the dark, difficult places that must be passed through in order for His work to be done. We lose sight of what's going on. And Mary Magdalene found herself standing at the cross of Jesus, standing there with his mother and his sister, looking up at him, watching him, listening as he said, my God, why have you forsaken me? Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. Into your hands, God, I commit my spirit. And he died. And when he died, something in Mary Magdalene died. Something that was gone for good. She'd never have him with her in that way again. What a heartbreak. What a heartbreak. Well, I know about heartbreaks too, and so do you. We've experienced them in many parts of life. I experienced a heartbreak in relation to my horse Geronimo. Remember how I said when it got to the point that he had to go away? He had to go away. My concern was I just want him to go someplace good. A place where they'll treat him right. So, put the ad out, and after a few weeks I got a call. I got a call from a man who said, hey, this horse of yours, the one you described in the ad, sounds like exactly what I've been looking for. I said, okay, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you plan to do with the horse? He said, I've got grandkids. We got a big farm, plenty of grass, a few old mares out there that he can enjoy befriending. He can have a good life with us. He said, but now I need to get him. Grandkids are coming this week. I need to come get him right now. I always get a little uneasy when somebody's rushing me. But I said, okay, I'll meet you in 15 minutes. We met over at the barn where Geronimo was. And as we began to load Geronimo up, I had this knot in the back of my throat that wanted to spill out in the form of tears. But I held it back because I had something important to do, to communicate. I began to tell this man everything there was to know about Geronimo. I began explaining about where he came from, what all I'd done with him, how he thinks, things you need to know about his personal habits, what he normally eats, his name, etc. But I noticed this fella was still acting like he was in a hurry. And he was like, yeah, I know just what you mean there. Yeah. We've got to get going. I'm sorry. We got to get on the road. Those grandkids, you know. So I shut that door behind Geronimo, latched the trailer, and I watched Geronimo disappear from my life out across the horizon. But at least I felt okay. I felt okay, a little uneasy, but then a week later, I ran into a friend who said, "Hey, Lance, don't you have a red roan Mustang stallion that you broke and all that?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I thought so because I've been to your place. I've seen him. I've seen you riding him." I said, "Lance, why did you sell him at the horse sale last week?" I said, "What?" He said, "Well, he went through the ring at the sale barn over in Bruton last Saturday night." Started piecing times together and realized that man was in a hurry because he was late to the horse sale. And he left my horse, went straight to the sale barn and ran Geronimo through for whatever he could. This, I think it's going again now, but this is when the meat packing stuff was going strong, and that particular sale had several companies that would come there and buy horses for slaughter, dog food or glue, whatever you make from horses. And Lord, my heart sunk. Oh, like Mary Magdalene standing outside the tomb of Jesus, weeping, weeping. Tomb's empty, but he's not there. Says to this man who looks like a gardener, "Sir, can you tell me where he is? They've taken away my Lord, and I don't know where they put him." And they'd taken away my horse. I didn't know where he was. So I immediately wrote a letter. I wrote it almost as if with my own blood. I put my heart into it. I said, "Please, you who bought this horse, I want you to know that you got him by mistake. I was tricked, and I'd have never sold him if I'd known this. And it's not your fault. It's not your fault. But please, I'll buy him back. I'll give him more than you paid. Whatever you paid, I'll give you more. Whatever you need. Just please call me. Call me." I gave him my phone number. So I got his name and address from the sale barn. They had no phone number, so I got his address. Seal that letter with a prayer. Sent it out. Week passed. And another week passed. And a third week passed. And you know, I never got a single reply from that man who bought Geronimo. My Geronimo was gone. They took him away. I don't know where they put him. Boy, it was a sad, sad ending. Only that was not an ending. Not the end at all. Because you see, by the end of that week, I got a call from a woman with a strange voice. She didn't say who she was. She didn't ask for lunch. She just started talking. And she said, "You don't know me, but I have your horse. I bought him Saturday night at a sale barn myself, this past Saturday night, and the man I bought him from handed me your letter. And I'm calling to tell you that he's fine. And he's in good hands. And I can tell he's a mighty special horse. I'm not a meat packer. I'm not even a horse trader. I'm an animal lover. I treat them all like pets. Now, tell me, what does he like to eat? And what's his name? I want to call him by his real name." She said, "I'll keep him. I keep all my horses for their whole life on my place. But if I ever sell him at all, you'll be the first one to know. All you got to do is tell me. And most of all, you tell me anytime you want to come and see him." And it all came just when I was starting to think. They'd taken my horse away so far that I wouldn't be able to find him. And I learned that what seems like the end is often not the end at all. In fact, when you get right down to it, with God, there are no endings. It's a never-ending story for the children of God. What seems like an ending, including a death, a loss, is but the end of a chapter, with many more come. And so it was with Mary Magdalene, who stood outside the tomb weeping. Oh, they've taken away my Lord, and I don't know where they put him. Oh, God, you see the sparrows fall. Oh, God. But she too had this chapter coming. John chapter 20, verse 14 and 16. She got a surprise call. The Bible says she turned to leave that tomb and saw one standing there. It was Jesus, but she didn't recognize him. Dear woman, why are you crying? Jesus asked her. Who are you looking for? She thought he was the gardener. Sir, she said, if you've taken him away, please tell me where you've put him and I will go and get him. Mary, Jesus said. She turned to him and cried out, Oh, Rabbi, teacher, teacher. Mary found out that there's always more to the story. And there's more to your story. And so if you've lost something or somebody that you think you can't do without, remember this word, stay tuned. To be continued. Oh, it makes me sing because I'm happy and sing because I'm free. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know he watches me.